You've spent years building your customer base. Then overnight, a competitor rolls into town.
The calls start, the panic spreads, and every instinct you have is screaming, drop prices, fight back, do something.
You are the only game in town.
You have to be considering what if. What are you going to do when competition comes in? In this episode, we're breaking down what really happens when a competitor moves in, how to tell if they're a real threat, when to push back, and when walking away might actually be the power move.
Because sometimes the worst mistake you can make is reacting too fast.
I think it's interesting to note that competition is impacting providers around the country as well in ways that we can't imagine. These aren't acquisitions. These are people that have literally closed their doors because the competition took them out. But what if the competitor isn't the problem?
What if the real threat is how your own team handles the fear? All right, well, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about dealing with competitors. So we all have to deal with them. What are the most important things an ISP should do before a competitor shows up in their market? Georgette?
Ooh, good to start with me. I think really knowing what your products are and what the values are that your products provide to your customers is really super important. And defining the actual geography that you can serve and making sure your customers can match that geography with their sense. It's like you've got a website and you're like, I'm going to pick on Washington County. Now serving Washington County. Well, there's a Washington County in every state in the union, right? So does your website clearly state Washington County, Texas? And that's where you can serve your customers.
Well, mine wouldn't have said that because I would have been Washington County.
Were you in Washington County, Wisconsin?
And it is. It's right next to us. It's
funny.
Washington County.
But it's such a thing. And I see it over and over again where the websites don't clearly define their websites and they tie it to their Facebook page and their footprint, right? Their marketing footprint. And your customers want to know what the products are, why they would want to have it, and where they can receive it. So I think that's really important to get the lay of the land.
Are you saying that if you're not optimizing, is this about SEO more than anything else? Like they can leave that door open for someone else to come in, or?
No, I'm just saying that before your competitors come in, your customers have to know where you're operating. Your customers have to know what you're offering. Because when a shiny new object comes in, if they don't know that you're offering service in this particular footprint, they're obviously going to go to the competitor because they don't even know that you're there. And I have seen this over and over again. I've been, I like to refer my friends to work with local ISPs and not tier 1 providers. And they'll be like, well, I've lived in this community for, 15 years. I've never heard of this ISP. And they literally have, a tower half a mile from their home, but they've never heard of the local operator. And you've got to get that presence known. And is it a yard sign? Is it signage on your trucks? How are people going to find you?
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of that stems from sometimes you start your ISP and you're the only game in town. Mm-hmm. And I think that can really kind of corrupt your perception of what you need to do and what you need to prioritize. And that's what I thought of when you posed this question. To me, the first thing I thought of is you need to establish your community presence. And my mind went in a slightly different direction. But imagine you've been operating in the community for years. For whatever reason, you decided not to do something as simple as like sponsoring a local softball league or something like that. And then you've got a shiny new upstart and they come in and they sponsor. And every time you go to your kid's softball game, you got your competitor's logo on everybody's backs. And I mean, that's the kind of thing where it's just like, what a lost opportunity. But that community perception, that's how you have that awareness. That's how you grow that. So that's the first thing I thought of for sure.
And for me, it was make sure your network is there. Make sure you're in good shape, Make sure you can handle this, growth that you're going to have to try and experience. And, how are you going to compete against them? Look at problem areas, get those fixed before the competitor comes in there with, their brand new service that has 0 people on their AP and it's performing flawlessly because you're the only person consuming the bandwidth. Make sure you're analyzing your network and make sure that is going to support competing against that person. Not that they're going to come in, everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, I had X I switched to Y. It's so much better. You know, you just can't be having that. That's gonna be the tough gig to.
Now, Larry, when you were an operator, were you the only game in town for a period of time?
I don't think. Well, okay, way back in the dial-up days, we were the only dial-up for 2 weeks before
2 weeks,
Data
okay.
Plus came in to compete.
You remember this very clearly. That was obviously a very good 2 weeks for you.
Yeah, it was a great 2 weeks. I think we signed up 4 or 5 people. You know, no, it was very. We almost never were the only game in town.
Interesting.
We always had cable companies that we were dealing with, and we had the phone companies were typically providing some kind of access.
Rick, how about you? Were you ever the only game in town?
In the early days, that was more often than not. We really were, we didn't provide any dial-up, so we were fixed wireless first, and we were taking people off of dial-up. That was the era where we really introduced our network. So, you know, it was commonplace where we would get into a home and they would not have anything with an Ethernet card or port.
Oh, yeah, we put in plenty of Ethernet cards
exactly.
into PCs.
So we were largely, you know, not really competing with anybody. It was a matter of, oh my God, you can get me off dial-up. And that's why, you know, it was a high demand thing. We had long waiting lists and it didn't really matter. It was a fantasy land, right? And that didn't last forever. Obviously, competitors came in and technologies improved and you know, even the tier 1 providers started to dabble in things like LTE. So we had, you know, that it didn't last like that forever, but that was our first chapter. And that's why when I talk about kind of being lulled into this false sense of security, that's coming from experience where, you know, you are the only game in town, and that can easily lead to arrogance.
Well, and I think that from the very beginning, when you're building your business plan, you have to be considering what if. What are you going to do when competition comes in? And are you building your service plan prices, your offerings in a way that you can withstand some competition?
Well, and I can remember when that shift took place. In the beginning, it was like you're acquiring customers who've never had internet before. And that was like, you know,
And you're like,
it was greenfield, right? Yeah.
They're all excited
But eventually
about it, right?
it got to be everybody had internet, and it was who can you steal customers from? It was no longer there's this big
acquire.
There's yeah. Okay, yeah, right. Acquire customers, not steal them. Yeah. But
little robber baron.
but it was a big shift. It was easy when the fields were out there and all you had to do was go pick the wheat, but
those are bygone times.
Oh yeah,
I think,
right.
Largely.
That's never happening again.
And nowadays, more than ever, I think even if you don't have an established local competitor, Starlink, right? Like internet in a box is a thing now.
But I still think there's a huge economic disparity on people who can afford Starlink. There are underserved areas in the United States and Canada as well that there is not a local provider yet. I still think there are greenfield opportunities in different areas of North America. The challenge is going to be as federal monies roll out, as PE monies roll out, those windows of opportunity to be the sole provider in an area, just that door keeps closing.
It's definitely getting much smaller and in much more specific areas.
Yep.
So Georgette, what do you do for your customers when you know that competitor is coming? How do you proactively reach out to your customers?
I think it's all about communication. We were talking at Whistlepalooza last week about those friction points for your customers. Is there friction in the purchasing process for you? Is there friction in onboarding for your customers? Is there friction when they've got a technical issue? I know that with the AWS outage that recently happened, people were calling up their ISPs thinking their ISP had done something wrong. And you are all of a sudden the expert in all things when you have no control over that particular situation.
The customers do believe that you are the internet.
I
guarantee that. It's like, yeah, we back that up. I've got that on my server. Let me restore that for you.
The Netflix server's down. Let me go restart it.
But I was watching Facebook that day, and it's like some of the operators were saying, hey, this is beyond our control. They're communicating with their customers. They're proactively getting messaging out. Some people were making sure their call centers were informed that there was nothing that they could particularly do, and they just need to be patient. But that communication, I think, is important when you're talking about competition. Who's getting that word out? Who's communicating more effectively during the process? I think the billing process, you want to make sure that there's no friction in the billing process. And even when you lose a customer, I think you should remove friction in that churn process because there's always a win back opportunity. And I think you should note why somebody left. Did they leave because of price? Did they leave because they moved across country? I'm not going to win back somebody who moved from Texas to California, but I may win back somebody who went to Starlink and found that no customer service was not what they wanted. They in fact want to be able to call somebody up and ask questions and be supported.
Right. Yep, definitely. How about you, Rick? Do you have to build the competitor coming in your long-term strategy? How do you prepare for it?
I don't know. I think you have kind of warning signs that are going to accrue pretty obviously. Like if you are asking the right questions, which you absolutely should, why is a customer leaving you? And you're tracking that and you're tracking trends. Well, if you're seeing that as a common answer, well, yeah, they are definitely a threat. If your customers are calling you up and saying, hey, I got a promo in the mail. Can you price match this? Or, how does my current offering stack up against it? Well, you've got a problem on your hands. So I think once you know and you've evaluated that, yes, they're not going anywhere, this is a mounting problem, you should build that into your strategy and start taking some of these proactive approaches like Georgette's saying.
Well, that's great. That leads us right into that next question. So how do you evaluate that competitor when they come in to determine if they're just a threat or if they're noise? We'll start with Rick. I'm not going to let you go first every time. We already know that's not fair.
Because I steal all of his answers.
Yeah, right. We've already discussed that's how it works.
Yeah, so I already got the ball rolling on that, but I think also, let's say it's earlier than that and you've just heard that they're coming into town. I mean, put your super sleuth hat on, right? If they have the aspect of their website where you can do address lookups, or maybe they just make it easy and publish a coverage map. I mean, you got to understand that. I know in the fixed wireless world, we're all tower watchers. You notice the gear going up before it's lit up. You might know the tower guy. They might give you a call. So I think that's easier. And in the wireline world, maybe it isn't as easy to kind of know what's going on. Things take longer, etc. If they're reselling, then who the hell knows what's going on, right? You can sign up for their mailing lists. If they have a tool where you can do address lookups, do a bunch of address lookups, get creative. If they're registering their IP blocks under the name of the business, you can look up and see who they're peering with. I think you can really get creative to just kind of establish that competitive intel and understand just from a what is the threat, what is the literal overlap of our coverage areas, etc. So I think you want to equip yourself with as much tactical knowledge as possible. Again, to your point of well, what do I do? I think it's different every time, and you're going to need to understand that.
I've got a customer in Texas that Spectrum has come in and they're offering $30 a month plans with a 2-year contract. And the local provider, their base price is $79.95. How do you cut your service plan pricing by half, more than half, and compete? Some people are like, well, I don't want a contract, then that'll stop them. But $30 a month that's a huge jump. And the other thing that Spectrum did is they had door knockers. They had salespeople going door to door, door to door. This particular operator was like, I don't have the workforce to be able to do that. And he actually ended up hiring some high school kids to go and start door knocking for him to be sales guys, just to thank his customers for being their customers. And I thought that was a very interesting play. And he used it as a customer referral opportunity that they could lower the price of their internet if they would refer their next door neighbor or the neighbor across the street or a friend, down the road. So it was giving them an opportunity to lower their internet bill without being locked into a contract and still supporting the local ISP. So I thought that was a unique way to go about that. He kind of fought fire with fire, but in a different way.
Well played.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to do it. We offer referral credits always for, bringing in customers, because that is your best word of mouth, is your customer telling their friend. We had Spectrum do exactly that same thing in our market when they first fired up their internet. I swear they looked at our price, cut it in half. That was their initial offering, and blanketed people. I think they just walked around looking for antennas on roofs. I don't even know if they stopped at every house, if they just stopped at the ones that we were serving.
Wow.
I mean, it was crazy.
Wow.
But you have to compete with that, and your customers, love you, so they're good with that. I think like Rick said, you start being that sleuth. There's FCC filings you can potentially look at. That's all public information. You can go look at their spectrum holdings if they're wireless and see what kind of what you're gonna be dealing with there. Did you guys ever sign up for accounts on your competitor service?
No, I don't think we did.
Sign up for accounts. See how they really perform. Put it in at your friend's house along with your service, of course.
That's a good one.
But see what they can really do.
Well, and I maintain that people really do want to shop local. So, as part of your marketing for competitive advantage, make sure you're highlighting the people in your community that you're employing. Susie's worked for us for 4 years, or Bobby graduated high school and started being a tower climber. Tell their story so that people connect, because I do think people want to spend their money with local providers. Not everybody, but when you're telling your story, it makes you be a tighter fit for your local communite.
But some of my competitors were local providers, so then
I guess I'm really thinking about more of the incumbent
you kind of
things.
lose that like that gig a little bit.
But
if
who
it's
tells
too
the better
local.
story?
Well, right,
Tell the better story.
right,
Yeah.
for sure.
Who gets there first? That's like my baseball, softball analogy, right? Like if whoever has that logo on there kind of owns that space, and then the community has that association. So even if they are technically a local company, if they're not telling that story, get in there and do it.
Are there ways you can see if these guys are going to be long-term problems for you, or if they're just going to burn and fade?
I mean, we all know that there are providers that are out there that are fly-by-night providers. They come in, they disrupt different communities. They leave a bad taste in the mouth of the community, and they pull out and they move up stakes, or they rebrand and they open up their doors somewhere else. We've all seen that in this industry, right? Tried and true. If you've been around for 10 years, you've been around for 15 years, you may have reinvented yourself. Got a customer that was a break-fix computer repair shop and became an ISP, and now they're deploying fiber. They are continuing to reinvent themselves as the industry changes, and it's kind of fun to watch. We don't know what technology is going to look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now. We're all going to have to look at new equipment, look at new deployments, look at different ways we can serve our communities.
I think one of the most positive indicators you can get is if you have someone leave for them and come back to you. So I would definitely watch your data like a hawk for that. I think that's a really positive indicator, and you can learn a lot from talking to that customer, like what happened, why are you back? I mean, and you can do things to kind of leave that door open and be like, hey, no hard feelings. If you ever want to come back, no install fee or whatever the case may be. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have your business. Good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for, kind of thing, right?
And it can't be snarky. It's got to be sincere. It's got to be. I understand You're making a decision. The door's always open. We want to serve you. You've got to maintain that relationship, even though they're walking out the door.
Don't burn the bridge.
And you have to gather the data. It's important. If you're gathering the data and the customer says, well, I'm leaving because my service is poor. Okay, you may leave because your service is poor, but you've been looking at your network. All of a sudden, you've got Rick who's leaving as well, and he lives down this street, and he's like, my connectivity keeps dropping. I've got a problem. You think your network is good, but now you've got 2 customers that are churned off of one access point on one tower. That's data that you need to take and be like, maybe there is something going on. Maybe there's something deeper that I misunderstood. Go fix it, and then go back after those 2 customers and say, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. Even though they're not your customers anymore, let them know that they helped you repair something for their neighbors, so that they're not taking other people with them.
Absolutely. Because, some customers won't call in for support. They're only going to churn. That is their fix to a problem.
Move along.
Right. I'll find somebody else and hope it's better. So are there scenarios where it makes sense not to compete and double down somewhere else?
I'm sure there are. I think you got to know why. Again, you were saying gather the data. I think you should gather the data. I would go that direction. But what kind of data are you looking for on that, right? I think that why can't I compete? Is it because they're offering speeds that I literally don't have the technology to deliver? Is it apples and oranges? Is it price? Can I afford to drop my pants on price? Like you need to understand the context of why you're competing and losing, or how you can kind of make yourself competitive again. I know it's kind of a non-answer in a way, but genuinely, I don't think there's a single answer I could give that would help anybody on that question.
You know, I think what the opportunity provides is for you to look at your footprint, where you're providing service. And when you're overlaying the map on what your competitors coming in, maybe there is a new area that you can serve. Maybe there's a different direction that you need to go. You thought you needed to go west, maybe now you need to go east. And are there unique opportunities for you, areas that you hadn't thought about? I know there was a provider that we have a cluster of customers in East Texas that kind of operate around each other. And none of them served this area that was becoming a wildlife preserve. And they all started trying to figure out who could help this wildlife preserve, because it's a large patch of land, right? Well, not one of them could serve all of it. So they broke it up, and there were different towers for the different providers that ended up being in that space. And I thought that was a really unique solution. Was there was a little bit of the pie for everybody, but not one person took all of it.
Yeah, for us, there was never a time when we pulled out of an area thinking that we couldn't compete. Would we spend our money elsewhere because we knew that we had a bigger market that we could capture? We didn't have as much competition potentially in other markets. Yes, of course. And you got to be looking at that. But I don't think there was ever a reason that we pull out of.
Didn't wave the white flag.
The fact of the matter is, there are ISPs that are going out of business. We've had a number of customers of our customers that have gone out of business this year. Numbers that I've not seen in the last 5 years of tracking this information, literally closing up their doors. That's intriguing as well. Is that because of tariffs? Is it because of competition? What is leading into those things? I don't have the answers on that yet.
Because we're not asking customers when they churn?
No. This was about doubling down.
Well, I guess, right.
Doubling down elsewhere. It's like, I think it's unique. I think it's interesting to note that competition is impacting providers around the country as well, in ways that we can't imagine. These aren't acquisitions. These aren't customers. These aren't companies that got acquired by somebody else. These are people that have literally closed their doors because the competition took them out.
And I think that goes to show it's unlikely that it's just this one isolated area in a vacuum that you can pull out cleanly and then everything's back to normal. I think that if you're experiencing that kind of profound impact, it's probably much bigger than just a border.
Right.
threat.
You better be ready and have some kind of strategy that's going to get you ahead of that curve.
Yep. And if you're pulling out in one area, you're probably doing it again next month, and that's a really scary pattern.
Right. How until you have 0 areas.
Right. Exactly.
Sonar brings clarity and structure to your operations, so your team can stay aligned, focused, and motivated. See how we support better cultures at sonar.software.
All right, now we're going to enter our love it or hate it section. So the first question is, you should always match your competitor's promo. Love it or hate it?
Oh, I absolutely hate that.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
hate it.
Okay. It's unanimous.
Everybody hates it.
Everybody hates it. I think there's so many other ways to compete than just dropping your prices.
It's just a race to the bottom. And that doesn't do anybody any good.
It sounds like a really reckless business rule to set in place and to mobilize for your team. Like, I swear you could capitalize off of that. If I saw that my competitor was doing that, I would do some tactical pants dropping pricing just to mess with them, because they're obviously doing that kind of reflexively. I do think, however, it's a really good idea to empower your frontline staff to make game day decisions on customer retention. Blanket rules, like kind of this question was posed, I don't think are going to be your friend, but I do think rigidity in the other direction is also a bad play. So if you have a customer that's been with you for a long time, or whatever the circumstances might be, and you are able to retain them, I mean, maybe it's not matching, cent for cent, kind of kilobit per kilobit, but I do think that is something that just flexibility rather than rigidity, I think is going to play to your favor down the long
Agreed.
term.
Yeah, but complete flexibility. I mean, we had some things like that, offers that we would allow our support staff or, frontline to give to customers, but you can't give them complete flexibility because otherwise you run into that, well, how come this guy got this and you won't offer me that? And we were really careful
You
about
need
trying to
bounds
be,
around it.
Well,
I
and
think
customers talk.
and customers talk.
They do
They'll find
talk.
out, right?
Yep, that's true, and that's the risk with variability.
Right.
But if you have like manager approval for the oddball stuff, just don't leave the opportunities on the table. That's all.
Right. So, I think you should take some of that difference in his promo pricing versus yours and either use it for additional marketing to try and ramp yourself up. I think sometimes you can offer short-term discounts and that can be given out to your customers and across the board as people are calling in and asking for it. I always tried to be somewhat consistent because like Georgette says, customers talk. And if one finds out you gave this guy one offer
really
and the
good
next
point.
guy the next offer, you're in a world of hurt. All right, let's move to our second question. Sometimes your biggest competitor can be your best ally. Love it or hate it?
I'm going to have to go with I love it.
Hate it.
I love it. I'm always super specific on the wording. I think the way this is worded led me to go that direction. I think sometimes that can be true. Yeah.
I've seen operators that work side by side, or they've got some moderate overlap in their networks, and they play well in the sandbox together. And in smaller towns, I think that works really, really well for both entities. And they'll literally refer people. I can't hit you well from my tower.
No,
Why don't you get this other
You
customer?
can't hit me well.
Oh, I can
That's
hit
intentional.
She has extended reach with the paddle.
Yeah, the paddle gets
That's why
that
Rick is
little
always in the middle.
That's why I really didn't want to sit there. That was only a joke when I sat down there.
So you said you hate it. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
right. So we're all word nerds. Rick locks in on sometimes and then uses that to love it. I lock on an ally and say, allies have shared goals. These are competitors. You do not have shared goals in this case.
Okay.
You may want to not cause problems for each other. Coordinate frequencies, do things like that, but they're not an ally.
I've seen competitors like literally unplug stuff off of co-located towers for each other. I mean, there's some viciousness out there, but I think you can build. I know I've seen.
We had a competitor move one of our antennas so that they could put theirs in place.
I'm sure it was an honest accident.
Yes, they didn't happen to notice the antenna there when they put theirs up.
Oh,
Wow.
I love it. I'm going to bring a dictionary to our next session, okay?
Yeah, right. Because we're all just picking up one word and then basing our entire answer on that.
I'm also basing it off of like experiences. I think if you have someone that you can, out of your competitors who's a true adversary who's taken your antennas down, right? But if you have someone like you were saying, if it's a capacity thing, if I'm full and I'm not planning on upgrading anytime soon, the mature thing to do is say, out of all the other options other than me, this is probably your best one. And if you do that and you're playing nice in the sandbox together, reciprocity will come your way. They'll do the same when there's another border situation and you have capacity and they don't. I have lived it. It is possible sometimes.
So I think about the only case for an alliance might be against that bigger competitor. Otherwise, I don't. And even that, I think ally is a strong word.
You're a prickly porcupine, my friend.
You should see some of the people I had to deal with in my business.
Fair enough. Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I remember where you operated.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So our last, love it or hate it. If you're losing to your competitors' marketing, offer them wholesale access and capitalize off of it. Love it or hate it.
I'm going to say that I love that.
I'm getting hung up on words again. But I think I'm closer to this one.
So you love it too.
I love it too. Yep.
No, I just didn't want to flip my pal. I'm just gonna be the hater for this episode.
You're a triple hater today,
I'm a triple
Larry.
hater.
He's got the haterade in his mug.
I'm going to sell why I think I love this
Okay.
and why I think you should change your paddle. Okay.
All right.
I think there's an opportunity to make money off of your competitors. And if there's an opportunity to make money, go do it. Go do it. The margins are thin. go out and figure out a way that your competitor can help put money in your pocketbook.
I think this further thins the margins, which is where I'm sort of like, and also I don't like losing. So my initial thought is, well, I better up my marketing game. However, taking this question at face value, some ISPs are nothing more than a sales and marketing machine anyways, if they're already wholesaling, and it's going to be hard to compete with those. And if I had a network that I had rolled out that was performant, but wasn't full, and I was having trouble getting customers on it, and I had bills to pay, and meanwhile, I have someone that is really effective at marketing, maybe there is a play there. Like it's kind of like trying to swim against the tide. My pride would have a hard time doing what's described here, but I do think it's a pragmatic way to go.
Ooh, that almost got me to change my paddle.
Just
but
roll
I'm
with
not,
it, Larry.
but I can't because I just don't want my
It's easy, look.
competitors' traffic coming across my network. I don't, now you've got really, if you're trying to make your network secure and safe, and all of a sudden you block your competitor's traffic because you decided that he's not being secure and safe, that's going to just open up such a big can of worms. And like you said, the margins are already so low. And my competitor already knows what the pricing is. And now I just don't think that minimal amount of money that I'm going to bring in on the wholesale margins is worth the stress that's going to cause me to have my competitors' data flowing through my network.
You don't want to be looking over your shoulder.
I don't want to be looking over my shoulder, and I don't want my really good network management rules helping them to have better service. Maybe if I wholesale too much to them, it's like now I really have nothing to offer because.
Damn it, Larry! Now I'm going to have to change to a hate. That was totally unexpected. I really wanted to flip you, but.
You really wanted to flip me.
Wow.
This is getting a little personal,
Put on
man.
the mask first.
Yeah, right. Put on the mask.
At the very least.
I will concur with your assessment here.
Well, I'm sticking with love.
Okay.
I think what I'm picturing is almost like a kind of a voluntary open access thing, and I have this whole situation in my mind. It's all very specific, but what I'm picturing here is someone that is already probably selling off of other people's networks, and that's how they're competing with me anyways. So I don't know. It does make sense to me. You can just become another one of their resellers, and if you're willing to do that to your business, if I got an empty network and they're going to fill it for me, at least I can pay my bills. I don't know.
If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. We've got more hot takes and ISP love it or hate it debates coming your way. All right, let's jump into our what if section. So what if your top sales rep jumps to your competitor? How do you compete then?
I mean, that's not just a what if, that's a reality around the country. People are always going to be looking for a better paying job. Your competitors are looking at your top salespeople that they want to bring them in-house. You can't clutch your pearls and hunker down and be like, oh, woe is me. I can't compete anymore. My top sales guy's gone. You just figure it out. You find what made them be your top salesperson and make sure that you've got some depth in that sales team and you're taking the best of what they did do for your business and get other people to start leveling up.
Yeah, exactly. I that is the biggest point to me is, you should have that documented. Why was he your best sales guy? And I mean, I get salespeople do have some magic to them, the really good salespeople do.
Some of them have the secret sauce.
But a lot of it's documentable secret sauce that you can then reuse.
Yeah, when I heard this question, I thought that a common reality for smaller operators is it may be your top salesperson, but it's also your only salesperson.
Yes.
So that becomes even more prolific of a problem. And are they your top salesperson because they brought their contacts and they brought the value to your business? Or are they your top salesperson because they've been with you forever and they're decent at what they do? Those are two very different scenarios.
Look, I'm going to tell you, I was talking to an operator the other day. They hired a contract sales guy to come in for 3 months into their footprint, was not from the area, and he was a hungry sales guy. He was being paid off a commission, and he went out and he was door knocking and he was doing the do. And doing such a good job, they were having a hard time keeping up with the installations. And he's like, well, why couldn't my regular staff have done this? But this guy just, he had that joie de vivre, right? He had this certain something. And after 3 months, he left. They kind of leveled up the skills of the people who were there local, and they were able to parlay that into additional installations after the 3-month period.
I think that example, you can bounce back from that because you can upskill people, level people up, like you were saying. If it's someone that brought their Rolodex and that's where they're getting all the sales from, then I think that is a much bigger challenge. What do you do? What if that happens? There's not much you can do other than, really try and supplement. I mean, at the end of the day, they know your business really well. You also know your business really well. You know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And I think, it's just about finding out who's going to fill the void.
Well, and I think there's a whole lot. This is nebulous, right? It's one thing if you're in a town with 400 people. It's another thing if you're in a town of 4,000. Another if you're in a town of 40,000. The levels of competition here would be vastly different in those three scenarios. So I think it depends on where this would happen.
Right. So is there something you need to do immediately? Something you should be doing in that first 48 hours after your sales guy leaves?
Fortify. I mean, take a look at what the open opportunities were, because if those opportunities, if there's any documentation in your sales cycle, some people don't have anything other than an Excel spreadsheet that they're working their leads off of. They may have addresses. It depends on what your sales cycle actually looks like for your footprint, and you have to accommodate to that. But if you've got anything that's open, man, go after what's open, because he knows those were open too, and he's going to go after them for the competition, because that's low-hanging fruit. What sales guy doesn't want the easy wins first thing out of the gate?
That's a great point.
Second thing he's going to do is come after your big clients. What do you do then?
You don't clutch your pearls. You just buckle down. You have to look at your customer base and know who he had good relationships with, because I've said this before, people do business with people. He is going to have an impact. He or she, because your top salesperson could also be a woman, they're going to have an impact on your business if you don't pay attention to the relationships they had developed when they were wearing your logo on their shirt.
I would say
car.
Look and see who's in contract, though. See if you can, kind of get to them first. If they're happy, get that renewal, get things locked in before they realize.
I'm seeing fewer and
it's
fewer
shifting.
contracts in local operators. Our customers, I would say that we used to have around 60% of our customers were offering contracts to their customers. I think we're down in the 20 to 30% range now. It's been a definite shift in the last 2 to 3 years.
My mind with sales immediately goes to commercial or B2B, because we didn't have sales by that name. For residential, it really was just a phone that would ring and we would do generalized marketing.
Gotcha.
So I guess I'm quite colored from my operator experience on the answer there.
Yeah, when I think of sales, it's B2B as well.
B2B.
I mean, because sales for the customer was them signing up on our website, them going into our support. We weren't outbound
If
sales.
I've got
You
fiber
weren't
circuits,
prospecting. You weren't
weren't
going,
prospecting,
Gotcha.
residential.
fiber circuits, point-to-points, dedicated connections. You're going to want to connect a contract behind that usually.
And they're going to want.
They're going to want the contract. They're going to want to be locked in. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Yep.
So that could be a good proactive response to getting that 2 weeks.
Then open up that Rolodex and take a look at what you got.
That's right.
Good.
If you found this episode helpful for how to deal with competitors, you'll want to check out our first episode, Competing with Giants. We break down how smaller ISPs actually beat the big players, not by copying them, but by leaning into community service and speed. It's a masterclass in what makes the underdog advantage real. Hit play on that one next.
Remember, when you connect communities, you unlock what's possible. Until next time.